Hey everyone, welcome to DevRunner. My name is Paul, and this is Subscriber Spotlight, where I have conversations with inspiring runners to help motivate you on your running journey. Today, I am pleased to be speaking with the amazingly talented runner and YouTube personality based out of the UK. His blisteringly fast race times always keep me very inspired to try harder, and his videos always teach me how to do it smarter. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So without any further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Tim Grose to my channel. Tim, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, good to be here. I'm not sure about blistering times. I think, well, maybe I was blistering about 30 years ago, but nowadays I think I'm sort of gracefully getting slower each year, but yeah.
Well, you still amaze me with your capabilities. So, hats off to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
Let me just get this whole conversation started. I just want to ask you to maybe share a short bio of yourself, who you are, where you're from exactly in the UK, and anything you want people to know up front about you. Now's a great time.
Okay, so I'm 55, so I've recently become an N55. It seems quite old, and I've lived in near London most of my life. I currently live in Surrey, just on the outside of London to the southwest, if you've ever been that way, in a place called Claygate. It's a bit obscure, people probably haven't heard of it. But yeah, I've been married to Sue since 1998. Yeah, how many years is that? I forget, I have to do the maths, but it's probably coming up for a big one before long. So no kids, unfortunately. No, we never managed to get that together for some reason. We had a few tests, but never seemed to work out. So if you wonder why I'm seem to be going here, there, and everywhere on my Strava travels, it's probably because I've got no kids to sort of like look after. We've just got Daisy the cat, and we seem to have got more cats have come into the garden of late. So Daisy may suddenly appear if we're not careful. But yeah, so it's really her is the one, apart from Sue, that I have to look after. So I've been essentially a lifelong runner. I mean, I started running at school, and I didn't really train until I was sort of about 15. It was, I don't know what they call now. It was probably just before so it wasn't quite into the sixth form in the last 2 years. Because I think I started when I was about 15. I remember I woke up one day, thought I'll do some training. So I sort of got up, ran around the block flat out. Obviously, I had no idea back then how you meant to train. And I think I sort of like, absolutely flat out went back to bed for a couple of hours because I was so knackered. And then I did a school cross country. And I think having done a bit of training, I went from like coming 10th the year before to second. So I thought, okay, clearly if you do a bit of running, then maybe you do all right. So, and then I think I sort of started training consistently, joined a club, and found that I used to like the sort of the track distances. So I did 800 and 1500 meters on the track for many years, till I finally got old and thought, well, it is as a runner, people always ask you what your marathon time is, and if you haven't done one, people think, oh, you're not good enough to run a marathon then, so it's almost like I better do one. So I stop these awkward conversations about whether you've done a marathon yet. So it took me until I was age 37, already been running for about 20 years until I did my first marathon.
Wow.
And but I think I still prefer the shorter distances, but I still did I did a marathon in, the last one was in October, but I've been injured recently. So unfortunately my plans to run in Boston soon were scuppered by that, but maybe another chance another time.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me ask you this, because I think you've kind of covered already like what got you started running, when you started running. But what do you consider the highlights of your running career? And I'm perfectly happy to talk about PR times, PB times, but even beyond that, the things that kind of brought you the most satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the sort of the performance one seemed a long time ago. I think breaking 2 minutes for 800 for the first time, and then a few years later breaking 4 minutes for the 1500, that was kind of pleasing, because it's kind of what I would say a decent club runner. I think I was probably in the UK terms like a county standard runner. We have like Surrey as a county within the UK is about 40 or 50 of them, so it's like a bit of it's not like a state, it's sort of smaller than that, but it's there's like an inter-counties championships, and there might be about 300 in. I represented like the county I was in at the time. So, when I went to the county championships, I picked up the odd medal here and there. I think I won one time. So I was never quite good enough to be an elite athlete. I think I was probably in 8 and 15 what I might call a sub-elite, in terms of like marathon equivalent. My marathon PB is 2:33, but my 800 PBs are 155 and 1500 3:55 with a 4:16 mile. So I was some way off a 4-minute mile, but when I look back at it now, thinking, well, I can't even run a sub 5 mile now, let alone even near a sub 4. So that does seem quick now, even to me. So I think I did a 400 a couple of years ago, and I think my average speed in my 1500 PB was about what I could do for the 400.
I got you.
About 30 years on. So that probably felt like I was sort of going fairly, not easily, but sort of comfortably back in the day. But don't get old. This myth about age is only a number. Well, it is in a way, but you definitely do slow up, and you have to sort of get your motivation from different places. So I think recently I've kind of started to more and more enjoy running for the sake of just running. I mean, I've been injured a bit. I was going well in January. I did a 37-minute 10K, and I was looking to push on for that and get ready for these marathons. And all of a sudden, I pulled my hamstring on the treadmill of all places. So
wow.
I think back in the day, I thought, well, I usually shake that off in a couple of weeks, but that was like best part of 2 months ago. And only finally tonight, I've been out for 5 miles very slowly. I mean, I did about a 9-minute mile pace, but I was able to actually feel like I was actually running. And, with the lighter evenings now in the UK, it kind of felt like, oh, well, that's kind of progress, because at least now I can actually go out for a run rather than, or I might go for a walk, or, I'll go on the bike to try and maintain some fitness. I mean, ultimately, I kind of think if I always like to run if I can. I just enjoy it more. It's, you can see more places. You can just sort of, I guess, get in the car and, oh, I've run here before. I'll go and run here, see what's here. And obviously you can run from your door, whatever, and just like the freedom and able to run wherever you can, really. And, I think if you can run, then obviously you're going to get fitter. And when you do a race, you're going to do reasonably. But I've had to realize that now, my times are not quite as good as they were when I was younger. So, but you can still be competitive in your age group and stuff. But
exactly.
Yeah.
The way you're what you aim for, does adjust with age. I mean, and it's, I think, the healthy thing to do. I mean, if I'm sort of reaching that point myself where I'm readjusting my expectations, because next month I'm 53. So
but you were saying earlier that you started running when you were 42, was it?
Yeah. So
yeah. So you're still sort of potentially able to do PBs then, are you? When your marathon,
I set my PB for the marathon in 2019, and because of COVID, obviously I haven't been able to against that. But, I have run a couple in the last since December. I've run 2 more and came up short. So I'm still out there trying, but I do have it in my mind constantly that age is a factor. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think you like to kind of ignore it, but you do see year to year that that your times that you were doing a couple of years ago are now suddenly becoming a bit more difficult to attain. And then I think I've definitely slowed my training pace. I mean, aside from being injured, I always used to run about 7 something minutes per mile, even the easy pace. And now I'm definitely seeing a lot more 8s in my training now, and it kind of feels more natural. And my marathon pace now is, well, I did a sub 3 2 years ago, and so I think I averaged about 6:45. But now to actually run 6:45 feels like I'm sort of moving pretty quickly, but I think you need to keep in touch with speed, don't you? Because I made the mistake in the past of just thinking that marathon pace is fast, when of course it isn't really, is it? And you kind of think if you're fit, you should be able to knock out a few miles at marathon pace. But so I still like to do the 5Ks and the 10Ks and still a bit of track races as well, just to sort of, keep in touch with a bit of speed. Because I think then when you go to the marathon, that speed doesn't suddenly become quite as daunting as perhaps it might have done otherwise. Well said.
Exactly. So
I mean, I see you did quite a few track sessions as well, don't you?
Yeah,
videos.
A lot more of them coming up soon. But yeah, I mean, I want to stay off the subject of me, because you are the so just to kind of shift subjects a little bit here, sir. I'd really like to know what motivated you to start a YouTube channel in the first place. And I know you've been on YouTube for a long time with sort of sporadic posts at the very beginning of your career, but yeah. Well,
I think YouTube is sort of platform. One day you just sign up, and then I was also very shy as a youngster, and I think I am still quite now. I mean, my wife is much more outgoing than I am, so we're a bit of an odd in a way. We can't work out like quite well because she's much more. She does a lot of acting, and I'm quite happy to go for a solo run and see nobody for a couple of hours. So, almost like you feel like you're talking to people, but you're not, because you're still on your own talking to a camera, and no one's feeding back to you. So, so it has been a bit of a sort of personal challenge in a way, and I think I'm obviously less shy than I was when I was younger. And I think when I was younger, I was even really sort of nervous about having my picture taken. So when I look back, there's very few pictures of me running in my prime because, I suppose, there wasn't social media back 30 years ago and stuff like there is now. And there weren't people like with GoPros just popping out and camera phones and all that sort of stuff. So I think I did find a clip we had a trip to Lanzarote in about 95. And it's kind of interesting to sort of see the odd clip of you then. And, you sort of, okay, look reasonably quick then, But, so that was interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I think my first one, I thought, well, I had this idea that I would, I was always into buying shoes and testing out different ones, but nothing like to the extent that I am now. So, I sort of rounded up all the shoes that I had, and I just got these Next Percents, the Vaporfly Next Percents, and I thought, well, I'll do a little video sort of testing to see how I could sort of see how that pair compared to sort of the more normal trainers, as it were. Yeah. So I had this idea: if I ran the same course, I think I chose about a 2-mile loop, which is fairly flat, and if I tried to run it at the same sort of speed, then I could see what my heart rate did on each one. So the idea was, and then I didn't do it like a session, so I had a sort of a generous rest so that the heart rate came down. And so I ran in sort of some of these normal shoes. I think I had like a Rincon or a Pegasus Turbo, and they're all fairly similar. And I put these Next Percents on at the end, and it felt like you were just floating along, even though it was the last one. So I think by then I'd already done about sort of 5 2-mile intervals. So then I sort of turned that into a video and did one of my customary spreadsheets. And I didn't have a very good camera back then. I don't think I even had a GoPro, one of these sort of Garmin ones, which were pretty rubbish. So it probably, I'm almost embarrassing to look at some of those old ones now. And I still don't think I'm very good at doing videos. I think people are, some of the people are almost like, say, like Ed Budd, he's almost like a natural entertainer. And I think part of it is sort of trying to find a niche that trying to do a video that I am interested in actually doing, rather than doing a video because you think somebody else might be interested in it. So when I have noticed when I look at my views, if you do a review on a Nike shoe, you get far more views because everyone's looking for reviews of a Nike shoe. But obviously it's nice to do them, and I do wear a lot of Nike shoes. But I think it is a temptation to, I try to sort of not just be like a shoe tuber, because there's so many people doing that now, and people doing it almost professionally, that they're getting like the shoes sent to them, and there's groups of people doing it as almost like Believe in the Run and the Run Testers in the UK. So you kind of think, well, there's no way as an individual you could ever compete with them, especially me. I'm a bit of an odd shape. I'm a UK 13, US 14 foot size. So some of the shoes don't even come in my size in the first place. So there's not too many people wanting to know about how a size 13 fits. So, and then I'm a bit of a, I'm very tall and thin. So I'm not like a typical US size 9 and stuff like that. So, but I've always done, I've always done rankings of time. So I run 2 websites in the UK, Power of 10 and Run Britain Rankings. So I try and sort of shoehorn some of that stuff into my videos as well. And if I've been running, as I say, like 40 years now, so hopefully I've picked up a few things on the way and can make sort of comments about people, because I think it's kind of, when you look at people now running who are younger than you, I still get a bit of jealousy almost that they're running well, but you're kind of thinking, could I have kept up with them when I was their age? And sometimes I could, sometimes I can't. Sometimes people are just really good, but if someone's running on about 32 minutes, they go, oh, okay, well that was about my level. And so you can kind of relate to what they're doing now to what I used to do back then. And when I was younger, until I was about 36, I used to almost exclusively do 800 and 1500 as my main events. I would do occasionally, like the occasional 10K, and I'd do cross country in the winter. So I was kind of a typical British sort of club runner. So our season would be kind of determined by you get the fixture list from the club secretary in the autumn, and you would see all the cross country fixtures through the winter, and you would have like league races and maybe a few sort of open races in the summer. So you kind of knew where the races were, in advance. I mean, it's kind of quite different now because the road race scene is much more prevalent, and it's much more almost self-service now, and you've got park runs in the UK as well. So if you're just fancying a run out, you can just sort of go to them as well, because they're just everywhere now.
Yeah, I wish they were here in larger numbers. I know there's a few cities here in the US that are doing it, but it's not. It's
huge here. Yeah, and it's become much more than running, and people, literally people have done it every week for like 10, 15 years. I mean, people have done. I think the guy that's done the most now is on about 700, 800 of them. I've done 100. I've done over 100, but
wow.
I kind of treat them a bit more like a not like a race, but when I do them, I like to try. So at the moment, I know I'm going to run it because I wouldn't do very well. I'm not sure if I can get round, but when I'm a bit fitter, it'd be nice to do one again, because they're nice events, and you can try as hard as you want, and nobody really cares whether you're running hard or not, and you can't be last because they have a tail walker. So, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. Let me start with a statement, and then I'll end with a question here. One of the things that I appreciate most on your channel is exactly as you alluded to earlier, sort of your deep dive gear reviews, your runner rankings, and your instructional videos. It sounds like you just kind of naturally came into that, but I'd like you to talk about your process of how you came to those subjects, and was it your intention to sort of go into the depth that you don't normally see from other YouTube channels? Was that something that you thought was missing, or was this just sort of that just suits your personality, and so that's?
Well, I mean, a lot of the videos I do, I have this sort of idea. So like I did an example. I was thinking, well, it's probably quite pertinent to both of us. I mean, if you want to run a sub-3 marathon, what sort of times do you need to do at the shorter distances? I mean, obviously, it's no guarantee that if you run a certain time for a half marathon, you can translate that into a marathon. But because I've got access to all this sort of data from the Power of 10 and Run Britain rankings of all the performances that happen in the UK, so you can go and see. Well, I can do a query in the database saying, well, look at all the people that have run a sub-3 recently. What were their best times at these other distances? And then. So then I've had this say, well, what sort of time, do the people that run a sub-3, what is the sort of like 95% of them have run for a half marathon? Because obviously there'll be people that haven't run one, or they didn't try. It was a very difficult course. So I think I found it was about, I forget exactly, about 125 or 126. So. And I was having the same problem leading up to Seville 2 years ago. I'd been going well, then I had an injury, and I was coming back. I had a half marathon about 4 or 5 weeks out, and I said to myself, well, what time do I need to do to make it even worthwhile me trying to run a sub-3 a month later? And I thought, well, a sub 125, and I ran literally 7 seconds quicker. So I kind of thought, in a way, that was kind of the worst answer, because it made me think, well, I need to now try, but it's going to be a struggle. Unfortunately, I was able to get some good training in the last month, and I turned that into a 256. But so it's these sort of questions I have in my head, and I think, well, it's not the sort of thing that you can always just sort of find out about. So it's almost like, sometimes I think some of my videos get a bit long, but it's almost like me sort of thinking out loud, as it were, in terms of it. And I think I did a degree and a PhD in sort of mathematical type stuff. So one of the challenges, I think, for me is to present data in a way that people can sort of understand without too much knowledge about stats. So my sort of academic stats was like, 30 years ago, I've forgotten it all myself. So now if you sort of plot a graph, you're not like looking about, complicated sort of metrics about what they all mean. You're just looking for sort of like trends and illustrate stuff. So I did a video recently on Seth James Demore, and a couple of other YouTubers are going for a sub 220 in Rotterdam. So I wanted to sort of plot what sort of level of intensity they were doing. So I plotted out the number of miles that they ran at marathon pace or more. And you could see with some of them that some of them did more than others. And yeah, you can put that into a table of numbers, but if you present that in a graph, it kind of illustrates your point. So I think, I mean, obviously you have to be sort of mathematically orientated and sort of interested in the subject. And there are, you know, YouTube, when you look at some YouTube channels, they're the really massive ones, not the running ones, but the people who've got literally millions and millions of subs. It's all basically entertainment, isn't it? And it's sort of like, does anyone ever watch a YouTube video in full? You know, you kind of thinking, well, does anyone ever get to the end? I mean, you know, I very rarely ask people to subscribe to my channel, but that's what I say that at the end. People even don't even get there. But I think for a long time I thought my videos weren't that great, so I was almost embarrassed to people to ask, you know. But I'm sure, like everybody, I mean, I just hit 3,000 recently, and it's sort of although it doesn't really mean anything in the general scheme of things, it's sort of like a badge of honor. It's a bit like going, say, a sub-3 marathon, isn't it? It doesn't mean anything. If you do a 3 hour and 1 second, it's no real difference to doing a 2:59.59 seconds. But psychologically, it just feels like it's just so much better, isn't it? You know, because it's just inside a barrier. And I think for a couple of weeks, I was about 10 short, and I started losing a few subscribers. I was thinking, you know, what's going on? I was thinking I'll get to 3,000 and I'd lose about 5 and I'd have to, I'd have to wait. But yeah, I think I'm sort of comfortable over the line now. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I thought I was the only one who thought that way when it came to YouTube.
Oh yeah. I think there's sort of those people sort of say to subscribe and support the channel, but I mean, to me, I mean, it's more of a hobby. I'm not looking to make a career out of it, so I don't try and contact people to get free shoes. I mean, I'd rather, in a way, because I'm such an odd body shape in the first place, you know, if I approach ASICS for the latest carbon racer, well, then you do up to a size 12, and I tried the 12 and it was way too small anyway. So I kind of like the fact of just buying what I want, and then if I want to talk about it, I can. I mean, obviously it's nice to get free stuff, isn't it? And but you know, sometimes you watch these stuff and it's like what's the difference between their video and the adverts that come in between? I've got this product, and you think, well, how much they say that I'm not being paid to review it? Can you really believe it half the time? Because you know, you're not going to get any more stuff if you say it's rubbish, are you? So
that's hilarious. You know, I love the fact that you are so independent minded, and the fact that you are, you know, clearly not being sponsored by at least a couple of brands that we know of now. But
well, I think it's difficult. I mean, I think if I was say 21 again, you're kind of thinking, well, you know, back in our day, something like making a career out of doing YouTube videos wasn't a thing, was it? And you think, well, now if you've got a couple of thousand subscribers, you know, there's a guy called Ben Felton, who's, you know, I think he went full time on 10,000. I was thinking, well, I know how much I earn, which is basically next to, I mean, if I could afford a pair of shoes a month, you'll be lucky. So even with 10,000, you're not really going to be earning a lot of money. So it's an incredible risk. But yeah, you know, if you look back and you think, well, if you want to explore how good you can be at running, and you're not really quite good enough to be a pro, these days it does allow you that opportunity that that it wasn't going to be available to us 30 years ago. Because there would have been no money in it. I mean, me as a 155, 800 meter runner, I mean, I was barely better than the women, let alone the men, you know, so just wouldn't have been an option.
But it does open doors. I got to say that, you know, the thing, you know.
So I quite enjoy watching these sort of channels. Sometimes I'm sort of a bit cringy because sometimes they sort of almost overdo the product placements, and you're kind of thinking, oh, you know, just be a bit more honest about stuff. And you know, I've really subscribed to see how your running's going, not to see what obscure product you're passing this week. But I think it does. Sometimes you do see products. I mean, one of the guys I follow talked about a lighting thing, and I haven't got the best of setups. I think, well, maybe I'll just get a better camera and sort out my lighting. But you know, it's sort of, you can spend a lot of money on YouTube, can't you, without getting any, you know, you're not even covering your costs. So you know, the wife says, oh, not another pair of shoes, Tim, you know. And I almost don't want to count out how much money I spend on shoes, because it would be ridiculously ridiculous, you know. But we don't have kids, so it's not as if I need to you know,
Yeah, I'm with you.
Save the money for them, as it were, unfortunately.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying your hobby, then spend, as long as you can afford it.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
let me ask you this, Tim. What motivates you now, like going forward, not just with YouTube, but please do talk about that as well. What are your future goals for running, for YouTube, for life?
Well, I think, I mean, YouTube's interesting because a lot of channels, it's also very positive, and you almost get some larger than life characters, and you think, are they really like that when you meet them? And I think I try to be myself. I'm not really like someone who's going to shout at the camera and sort of say how things are all wonderful, because I'm quite a shy, sort of person, and that would be kind of like false, and I couldn't maintain that, and I'm not able to do PBs anymore. And I think recently when I've been injured, it's kind of made you realize that you do enjoy running for running's sake. And, just being able to, especially during a sort of lockdown, I mean, some days it was the only way that you could actually physically get out the door, wasn't it? I've been working at home anyway, and I probably will be permanently. So if I wasn't a runner, and I didn't really like going for, I haven't got a dog or anything, so I don't need to go out and walk the dog, I don't have one. So, sometimes you could think, well, would they even go out, and I'm always someone that sort of likes to be sort of feeling, so I always feel better if I'm feeling fit. And, I mean, I went out today, and it was, although I could actually run, I could sort of tell after 2 months of not really training properly that, the old legs weren't really used to running. But so experience tells that if you give it a couple of weeks and I stay injury free, most of it will come back quite quickly.
Yeah.
Well, at least I hope so anyway.
Exactly. Maybe less than years go on, but
yeah. So yeah, I think motivation and goals are something that's kind of, I'm starting to sort of change. I used to be extremely competitive, and I think I still am, because I look at people, anybody's times, and I recorded these times, and I'm always trying to think, A, am I better than them outright even now? And B, if I'm not better than that right now, could I be better than when I was younger and their age? And if I'm not better than them at their best event, I think, well, what's their 800-meter time? Could I be better at that event? So there's not many runners, I think, that they're absolutely better than me at absolutely everything. Obviously, there are a few, but so so sort of deep down, I can be sort of quite, you can sort of portray, oh yeah, very well done. And you think, oh bloody hell, he's beaten me again, or he would have done, And how the hell is it? There's a couple of people I know locally. They're about my age, and I used to be able to sort of not beat them every time, but beat them sometimes. And despite the fact that we're saying age is not a number, they seem to be getting, well, they're not getting better with age, but they're not getting much worse. So
yeah,
they're still doing times that I was sort of pleased with, say, 10 years ago. So you think, how the hell are they doing it? When I look on their Strava, I think, well, they're not doing amazing training, but somehow they're running way better than they are. So I'm always concentrating in my head about how these people are doing it. I mean, I'm not saying for one moment that they're doing anything by any illegal means, but you kind of think, well, it's quite inspiring in a way, because you think, well, there's somebody that I know, and on a good day, perhaps I could keep up with them or even beat them. And then all of a sudden one of the guys in question, he won the British M50 cross-country championships. And he's running, he did a 74 half marathon.
Wow.
But 5 years ago he was running 79. So and he said, oh, it's my best time since like the 90s, when I was like in my 20s. And I think, well,
so we're talking about an older gentleman.
Yeah, he's like literally sort of 50. So I think there's a lot about consistency as we get older, isn't there? So I think, I was going quite well, because I had about 6 months of training. I didn't get injured. And of course, as soon as you get injured, it's almost back to square one again, isn't it? And however much sort of like you thought, I think I should do cross training, I think I just like to run. So I get on Zwift on my bike here and occasionally go outside, but I always think it's sort of almost forcing myself to have to do so. And like an hour on the trainer on Zwift doesn't feel like the same as doing an hour outside and running, especially now it's a bit brighter in the evening. I wouldn't say it's really warm yet, but it's no longer cold, as it were. So yeah, I think it's an element of just wanting to sort of get outside. And I do a lot of running now where It's a bit of a mad challenge, but I try to run all the streets in an area. There's this website called citystrides.com where it allows you to sort of basically build up a personal heat map, and you can basically, during lockdown, I ran all the streets in my local sort of borough, and then I've sort of then, having done that one, I've moved on to the ones outside it. So tonight I was doing this sort of slow run, and I was ticking off about 12 streets I hadn't run before. So yeah, so I come up with these mad ideas to just keep me motivated. So, you know, otherwise sort of a 5 mile run at barely 9-minute mile pace may think a bit of an effort, but at least I feel like I'm, you know, I've achieved something from the run other than just the run itself. So
yeah, exactly.
I think it's just the sort of there was a bit of a joke that I used to, I don't know if you have Smarties where you are. They're like little chocolates.
Yeah, I know.
And they come in and they all come in different colors. So my mum would say, and my brother and me would get a packet of Smarties, and he would open them up as quickly as possible. But I would open it out and I would count them, how many reds there were, how many greens there were, and then I would eat them. You know, I was thinking, oh, they've got four browns and 3 greens. That's odd, you know. So I've always been sort of like analytical in that sort of sense. I think I've sort of carried on. So I think some people might call it sort of geekery, I think, to a certain extent. But you know, so when you say, like, you know, yeah, YouTube, in a way it kind of reflects yourself, doesn't it? And sometimes people are thinking, oh, you know, what's, you know, you do some videos and I spent a lot of effort in that one, and next to nobody's watching it. He's kind of, then you do another one where you think, I'm not sure if that will do all right, and then it's got a load of views. It's kind of bizarre how it works out sometimes. So I think it's a bit like a race. You're kind of thinking, sometimes you do a race where you don't think you're going to do that well, and you do a lot better than you think. And other times you think you're hoping to do well and do badly. So sometimes YouTube videos are a bit like that. But I still think you should do a mixture of ones and do ones you're interested in. You know, so
I mean, it really
sometimes I find
when you're interested in, when you're
sometimes I think if I do one on me, like say when I've been injured, I did the odd one on I've been injured, and then I kind of like feels it was useful to do it, but it's not that exciting to watch because it's a bit sort of depressing. But I think there were a few people that kind of emphasize with it because it's happened to them, but it's not like something, oh, I must go and watch that over all these other ones that, you know, that people do. So I don't know about you, but I seem to get like a nucleus of subscribers who watch all my videos and also comment on whatever I'm talking about, even if it you know, just almost out of loyalty. And then you get ones where you get people that commenting you never even heard of before. They must have just found it. And so yeah, so I mean, it's quite a nice to do both, because you know, as I'm not trying to sort of make a career out of it, but on the other hand, when you put effort into it, you feel like if people watch it, they think, well, at least it's sort of justified your time and effort in doing so.
Exactly. It's always nice when it resonates with somebody, you know.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, like you're saying, like, you know, I'll get the same thing. I'll get a certain amount of satisfaction when something blows up, especially when you didn't expect it to. But if I do something where I know it's kind of a niche subject matter, I feel just as good if just a handful of people feedback. Like if you get some comments where you can tell they really watched all the way through and they actually enjoyed the subject matter, that means just as much to me. So
well, we'll look at my stats. I think that people seem to watch for about 5 minutes, however long so if I do a half-an-hour video or a 10-minute one, they still watch for 5 minutes. So kind of thinking, well, maybe I should just make my videos 5 minutes, and then people it's quite difficult to do a 5-minute video and get your point over, isn't it? Because unless you sort of really, you know, I mean, I started trying a few times to almost say my conclusion in the first 10 seconds, thinking, well, a lot of time you watch videos and they do this sort of like teaser, then they do their, I haven't got around to doing my sort of tune yet. I kind of think, oh, it's a bit of an effort, I can't be bothered. And but perhaps I think I ought to. So some videos you kind of think, well, they haven't actually said anything yet, and I've been watching for 2 minutes in the hope that they might, you know, and think, well, some days I can't be bothered to watch all through that, and some days I think, well, maybe I will, you know, or I'll skip forward. And so sometimes I try and do sections, but sometimes, you know, that can take a lot of effort. And you know, if you're trying to sort of tell a stats story, you can't just sort of go to the point, because you need to sort of explain what it all means, and then maybe you lose half the people on the way. So that's what I was saying earlier about trying to make it sort of get your point over, but in a way that hopefully that more people can understand, and you're not trying to be too sort of mathematical and geeky, because it's not like an academic sort of study, you know, I'm doing here. It's just often it's a study of one. You know, some of these people that do the lab testing of shoes, obviously they're doing it with like VO2 max recording equipment, and they've got like a cohort of people of different abilities and different body shapes and different fitnesses. So it's very difficult with just you to say, well, this sort of works for me, but you know, I've got like a long, narrow foot, so this shoe might work for me, but might be a complete disaster for somebody else, you know, with a wide foot, say, for instance, you know, or prefers a firmer shoe to a softer shoe. So, yeah.
One of the things that I love so much about your channel is, like, you know, I kind of talked about it briefly before, but I like the fact that you are cognizant of that sort of subjectivity, you know, that we're all stuck inside ourselves. And without a large group of people, we can't say anything, you know, definitively. But I think the fact that you bring such detail and when possible, especially when you're analyzing the data from various different runners, you do such a wonderful job of bringing out the significance of the differences in times and stuff like that. And that's, you know, in all truth, that's like the huge seller for me of your channel. That's what keeps me coming back, because when I watch your videos, even if it's a subject where it's kind of like, I don't know if I really, you know, I'm into that much, but the fact that it's you, I watch it anyway, because I know something, I'm going to get a nugget of information out of this video that I didn't expect, and it's going to help me. So, you know.
Well, it's very interesting to say that, because you know, you don't often get that feedback, because people make comments, and I tried to sort of reply, you know, I tried to sort of give a decent reply to it, but I think I haven't got quite to the level of views yet where it's almost, you know, some people get so big they just can't reply to everybody, can they? They'd just be doing it all day. So in a way, you kind of thinking sometimes those sort of channels kind of lose a bit when they get sort of too anonymous, and you know, then people start having, like, you know, you need to pay to almost be replied to. You kind of thinking it, you know, it takes away a bit of the fun of it. But I suppose, you know, in terms of running, because I've done most events, I mean, I suppose I've been a reasonable standard from every event, from 800 to the marathon. So, and I've kind of over the years tried different approaches. So things like, you know, taping for races. I don't think there's ever really an answer, or how many miles a week you should run, or how many interval sessions a week you should run, because you try different things, and then, okay, well, that works, and then you try the same thing again, and then it doesn't work, and you think, well, how's that then? Sometimes you just can't fathom it. So I think I have all these sort of memories in my head of when I've done a similar type of event, and what did I do at the time. And you know, I think unless someone's like really good, and you can't almost comprehend how they could be, you know, we talked about before the preamble about, say, so marathon running is a 2:05, and I can't almost comprehend how they could be that good. But someone's running a 2:20, it's amazingly good and better than I do, but it's still within the bounds of my comprehension. That, you know, they when you look at their sessions, well, okay, well, I perhaps couldn't do the whole thing, but I could have done some of it. Or, you know, they're running, you know, they do their easy pace runs at 8-minute miles. Well, I can do that even now, you know. And Seth, who's running these, my latest video was on that, and he's running some easy runs at very slow times, and a lot of it is kind of thinking, well, why is he doing that? And a lot of people in my latest video were kind of saying the same, and it's kind of difficult, because you don't want to sort of like go too personal in the comments about something. But when a YouTuber puts out a statement, I think when you get in the camera, there's a danger that people sort of believe what you say just because you're in front of a camera, even though you've got no real knowledge of the subject, you know. So someone says, right, this is what I do, and almost implying you should do it as well. And then next week you find that they're injured or had a bad race, and you think, well, what do they really know? You know, so it makes for good watching. But so I'm always a bit careful about giving training advice, but so I make observations on stuff in a way that, as you say, that hopefully people take something from, but not trying to be sort of too prescriptive, saying, well, I think that's just basically wrong. Because when you look at the times that they've done, and then they're better than yours, you think, well, you can't be too critical, because this guy's running far better than I ever did, even when I was in my 20s, you know. So clearly doing something right. And you know, obviously people have a lot of talent, and not much you can do about that sometimes. But Yeah, and because of the stats I do, I sort of, we do rankings of the best times. So you get so accustomed to seeing times, and they, without knowing the personalities, they just become a number in front of you. And you can kind of say, well, if someone's a sub 3 hour marathon runner, well, that's good. But you think, well, it's still an hour behind the world's best. And if you say run a 3-minute 800, you wouldn't think that's great compared to a 2-minute 800, would you? So, but it's kind of different kind of model, because it's a lot harder to run a sub 3 marathon than it is to run a 3-minute half a mile compared to a 2-minute one. So, especially having now done it, and in my last case, not even doing a sub 3, you kind of realize it's actually more difficult than it thinks. And but I suppose I can look back to the times I have done those sort of times, and what did I do, and try and, not to say that my way is right, but I can sort of, if someone says I'm doing this training and what do you think? Well, if someone asks you for an opinion, you can give it because they've asked for it. But you don't want to say, oh, that's, I mean, you get a lot of comments on social media, don't they, that anonymously people sort of slacking people off because they can hide behind some screen name, and they're not really, but they would never say that to them. I've had that a few times, and people have said really odd things, and when you come to meet them in person, they can barely get a word out. They're almost really shy. Yeah. And it's sort of almost an alter ego that they present on social media. So I think you have to sort of be aware of that. And I think I had one comment recently. One guy said, what do you know? Have you ever won a race? And I sort of thought, well, I've actually won more than 100 races. I think, well, I'm not trying to brag, but sometimes you get a comment needs a sort of a reply. And, sometimes I'm sort of well, I suppose I was trying to put this guy down, but, trying to point out, well, if you don't like what I'm doing, well, don't watch it, for God's sake.
There's a lot of other channels out there.
Yeah, there's plenty of other channels. Yeah. So, but I think it goes with the territory, doesn't it? When you put yourself out there, you're going to get obviously people that don't like it. And when you look back at some of them, you think, well, I'm not a natural presenter. I'm a bit more of an analytical person, and I think I'm getting better at it. But I'm never going to be the most entertaining person, I think. But so I think that's why it's kind of easy to look at a spreadsheet and talk about it rather than just. That's why I don't really like doing shoe reviews in front of the camera, just sort of holding up the shoe. So I'd rather go and review a shoe by running in it and telling you how it went, rather than just saying, oh, it's a nice color, or the upper's a bit soft, or this bit's a bit, how soft is the midsole? Because ultimately, I kind of think, well, I don't really know how a shoe is until it's put on my feet and go for a run in it, and then at different paces. So, you might think, well, that shoe looks nice in person, and I might like the color or not. But ultimately, I don't really care. I just want to know whether it works for me for the purpose I want to use it for. And I think a lot of people can present a shoe review sometimes without even having run in it. And you kind of think, well, how can they possibly have an informed comment?
Yeah, I'm with you. So, but before I move on to sort of a left field question, Tim, I just want to say again that you do not need to put on a song and dance in your videos in order to be entertaining. I think there are plenty of sort of analytically minded runners, and I count myself amongst them, who once they've discovered your channel, obviously, you've got 3,000 subscribers, and that's only going to continue growing. It's because you present the information that you find interesting very, very well. So please, branch out wherever you want to, explore new things as it strikes your fancy, but please don't feel like what you're doing isn't gold, because you bring a lot of value to YouTube for us runners. And I just want to put my voice in there to encourage you to keep on keeping on with all of those sort of deep dives. With that, sir, I want to ask you a question. As I said, a little bit of a left fielder. I'm hoping that you might share something with everybody who's watching this. And even if they're already familiar with you, something they might not already know about you, something that it could be silly, it could be deep, whatever strikes you.
That's a tough one, isn't it? I think YouTube can be a bit of an odd one. I think I'm quite somebody who's quite comfortable being on my own. I get quite nervous with a large audience. So like my wife's quite different to me. She's like does a lot of acting and very gregarious. So she had her birthday the other day and she invited 20 of her friends around. And I was thinking, I need an excuse to get out of the way because there's like basically 20 women in the house, all basically drinking and having a good time. And I was thinking, well, I'm very pleased for them, So maybe I'll go and do a bit of research on my latest video. So yeah, so I think we sort of love each other very much, and we don't have kids, so just got the cat Daisy and various mother-in-laws and stuff to look after. But yeah, so I think I've tried to sort of bring a bit of myself to the videos, but I'm not quite as wanting to sort of open up the whole life. So Sue's been in the odd one now and again, and but it's a bit like there used to be a series in Dad's Army where I think one of the wives of one of the army guys was sort of seen but not heard. So she has been seen, but I think Ed Budd's wife occasionally appears in some of her videos, but she's few and far between. So yeah, I guess I'm probably quite a sort of I was a private person, but I think what you see on YouTube is like more or less as I am. I mean, I am something, we were saying, sometimes I try and do a video and I just can't get the words out. And, I got better about getting rid of the ers and the ums and stuff, but sometimes I need to sort of like say a sentence about 10 times before I get it out. And the good advantage of editing is that you can get rid of all that crap. And, but did you sometimes come back from shooting some footage? I think, oh, because I've got half an hour of footage here. I was thinking this is going to be like a 5-minute video. And I think, I've got to go for all this stuff. It just takes forever. I mean, I was doing my video the other night and I was up to like 4 in the morning. And I was thinking, well, why is it, this is one thing you can ask me, why is it that Americans get up so early? You always get up so early. I never understand it. Does everybody get like about 4 in the morning and go for a run, it seems like?
Oh, yeah, no, not me. Definitely not me. I have to get up. I do get up early, but it's because I have to start work so early. So my days of morning runs are gone for at least the last 2 years. But yeah, for me, like, 6 a.m. is about where I get up, which is not super early, but
I mean, I probably wasn't far off going to bed at 6 a.m. and doing this video, but I get stuck into something. And I thought, because I was doing a video about essentially a race that's happening on Sunday, I think, well, there's kind of like, if I don't get it out like today, and then I knew I was doing this with you, so my time was going to be limited tonight. I think, well, there's like, I need to get this. If I had this idea, and I think, well, if I don't do it now, it's going to be a waste of time doing it, isn't it? So I've been doing the research for it. So a lot of these videos I do, I spend like a couple of evenings maybe just doing some preliminary sort of data analysis. So just to sort of make sure that it's actually something that's actually going to be worth talking about. And then it's the bit that I almost don't like, is the bit that I actually have to do the actual video bit, because I still get nervous about it. And even though it's like no one's asked me to do this, I'm not having to, I'm not being said, oh, can you make a video on this? And I'm waiting for the deadline. No one's going to know if I don't even bother to put it out. But I kind of feel that I try to do like a video a week. And if I'm really good, I might do 2. But there's a danger that you don't want it to become like a chore, because if it becomes a chore, then you shouldn't be doing it because you're no longer enjoying it. But it's a bit like a race. I mean, the one I've done at the moment is having a lot of views. And I'm not saying I do videos to have views, but it is a bit like a race when you do a good run and you think, well, okay, you feel good about yourself, don't you? Because you've trained hard for it and you've executed it well. Okay, whatever time you do is largely related to your ability and stuff. But you think, well, okay, well, I've done the best I could have done on the day. And it's a bit like that with some of the videos. And if you've got people watching it and commenting, and you kind of feel, okay, well, that was worthwhile. But then I think, then it'll take me about a week to think of something else to do. So when I go running, I might think of all these ideas that might be good to do. And you think, oh, maybe I won't do that. I don't think I'm interested, or that's an awful lot of effort, from, maybe 300 views or something, So, yeah. But I've got a little fun one coming up that I've been meaning to do for a while. So finally, I won't say what it is, but
Okay.
yeah, it might be a bit more light-hearted than some of them. But it might have a bit of data analysis in it. But yeah, we shall see.
Okay, cool. Well, I look forward to everything you put out. So I'm glad to hear you've got stuff in the works. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you something a little bit philosophical. Take it as deep as you'd like. How has running changed your life for the better?
It's a difficult one because I almost don't remember a time when I wasn't a runner, because I started running when I started training seriously when I was about 16, and I'm now 55. So other than a few sort of like mishaps along the way, I was training for Dublin Marathon in 2011 and ran into a post and ended up in hospital. So I missed that race and I didn't run for 7 months. And I had glandular fever in 1992 that kept me out for a good while. But other than sort of those incidents, I've kind of run all my time. So I think recently when I'm injured, you kind of miss the ability just to sort of get out the door, especially during lockdown, and just sort of enjoy getting out there and and feeling fit. Because I think it's kind of nice in a way being unfit, because you can get fit again. It's almost like you feel like a beginner runner again, and then almost like back when you were younger, that almost run to run, you can feel yourself getting fitter than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
But what I probably need to do at the moment is not perhaps run every day, and then because that might be a bit too much, I might get injured again. But so today was the first time I've actually run without doing any walking or feeling that I was about to pull my hamstring again for about 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of know that my temptation would be, I'll go and do a fast session tomorrow. But I think now that should be stupid, because the reality was, I got around 5 miles at 9-minute pace, but that's a long way from doing the same pace about 3 minutes quicker. So patience is a lot of it, and hindsight is an easy thing. It's anything. Well, how did I get injured in the first place? I mean, I wasn't even running that fast on the treadmill. I was doing about marathon pace, and you think, it's just annoying. Sometimes things just happen, don't they? But,
well, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I won't go into the details right now, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But I think it's great that you kind of alluded to the fact that running brings us health. It brings us fitness, and I've always found the biggest thing for me when it comes to running consistently, more than just sort of the being proud of what you can accomplish, race wise, time wise, and all that kind of stuff, is for me the mental clarity, a more even mood. I don't find myself getting as upset by things, or I don't allow myself sort of like the overly high highs either. I try to. I think running and the time to think while I'm running sort of does a lot to keep me a much more well-balanced human being.
Yeah, well, I'm not really one that ever runs with music, because I think I've been running for so long now that I don't get bored running, because I'm always sort of musing things in my head, and if I'm not musing things in my head, I'm just looking around. So I've done a lot of running on the treadmill, a lot on Zwift, and I think since lockdown I've done less on the treadmill, because I wanted to get out the door, because previously I was working, I was actually going somewhere to work, even though it wasn't that far away, but I could get a run in at lunchtime, say, and I don't really like running from home very much, because I think I've kind of covered all the streets around. I've lived here for the best part of 25 years. So although I quite like where we live and it's some nice routes, it's the same old routes. And I find that I actually run probably further if I get in the car and just go somewhere, because I'm always looking to explore, where does this road go? Or where does this path go? And sometimes I want to try out different shoes, so I might want to try a bit of trail. I mean, I'm not much of a trail runner, but sometimes you need to find a bit of off-road to give them a proper go, don't you? And or I might think, well, where can I do a sort of an interval session, or a tempo run that doesn't have too much traffic, but is also interesting. So, sometimes if you're doing a hard run, all you can really think about is putting one step to the other. But sometimes it's just nice to look around and think, is this a nice place to run? It gives that sort of mental sort of edge to help to what is be a slow sort of a solo hard furrow sometimes, isn't it? And well, I think if I want to do a track session, can I sort of incorporate that with some sort of YouTube video? I was going to take along a couple of pair of shoes and run 3 reps in one shoe, change over to another one, and then sort of I suppose because I'm not quite as serious a runner, because I know that my best day is behind me, so it's about, I'm still very competitive, and I think that's almost to my detriment sometimes. I think I still find it very hard to accept that I won't do any more PBs again unless I do an ultra, because I've never really done a race one. But I still have these dreams that I'll suddenly wake up and I was 25 again. I can still run a sub 4 1500, but I can barely run a sub 5 one now. You think, well, it's not going to happen, is it? I'm a whole minute slower over a mile than I used to be. So I can't see how I'm going to get much quicker anyway. You feel like you're trying as hard as you can, but there's a mate of mine called Phil, and he's a bit older than me, and we're kind of as bad as each other because we just can't really give it up, And he's sort of he used to be a steeplechaser, and he's now like doing 800s. I said, Phil, why do you do 800s? He's because it's over quicker. And I think
that's awesome.
but he's actually he's 60 soon, so the barriers come down for him to the women's height. So yeah, I think he's looking forward to having another go, because he can literally get his leg over more easily. But I think I dabbled in steeplechase for a bit, but I think my days of that are gone. I think I'm struggling to just run properly without having obstacles in the way.
Yeah, that scares me, that stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you this, Tim. Just give me your favorite piece of advice for other runners.
I think the classic one that I kind of learned more and more recently is to, the advice to run your easy days easy to make your harder days harder. I think I've been especially guilty, I'm sure we all have, of if you're feeling good, when you have a non-session day, and then it's so easy just to sort of up the gas, isn't it? And you find out you're running about half a mile, 30 seconds quicker than you want to be, and you can get away with that. But then the next day, when you're wanting to do a harder session, I feel a bit tired today, not quite where I wanted to be. So you get this sort of eternal trap of the hard sessions are only a bit harder than your easier runs. So, but I think I also, watching some of the elite videos, it's very interesting to me that how they don't really train flat out, or very rarely. So I think when I was younger, especially as an 800 meter, 1500 meter runner, I was always sort of saying, we'll do, say, 10 fours, and you would sort of treat it like a race, and you would almost like in a group, you would want to win the last rep. But when you see the pro teams, they're actually doing it as a team, and each person will take a rep at the lead. And even if somebody could get by, they don't, because they're training, they're not racing in training. So I think that's been very interesting to see that, and you can kind of see how you should adapt that to your own training. And if you are a competitive athlete, then ultimately you're trying to do your best on your race day. And if you do some amazing training sessions, well, that's great, but then you sort of see people turn up for a race and then don't do very well. You think, well, okay, then you look back at the training and think, well, I don't do all these amazing training sessions, but but ultimately no one remembers you did a good training session. They remember what time you did in your race, don't they? If at all, or at least you do. I mean, I look back now and thinking, well, I don't remember all the good training sessions that I've done. I remember the days I had a good race and the days I had a bad race, not what led up to it. So yeah, I think, and also I think if you can at all avoid it, don't get injured, because I think I've always done better with a consistent build-up of training, especially for the longer distances. I think you can get an awful long way in running largely aerobically, because a marathon is an aerobic event. I mean, we talk about marathon pace, but if you think if marathon pace feels hard, then it shouldn't be, should it? I think maybe that's then a time to do some shorter races just to get used to that turnover. Because I think even now I can say in a 5K, I could go about a minute a mile quicker than my marathon pace. And I had been times, I did duathlon for a few years, and then I think it was like a 10K run and then a cycle. And then I remember a period where I don't think I ever went faster than 10K speed. So when it came to the race, you kind of felt like you were sort of more sprinting.
Yeah.
And back in my track days, even doing a 1500 after doing 800-meter training, that sort of felt like, I wouldn't say easy, but it felt like familiar, should we say. So for a couple of laps, you didn't feel like you were flat out. So I think also, yeah, sort of vary up your training a bit, to mix up your speeds. I mean, I see some people on Strava who, they might run a 7-minute pace when they're going hard, or they might run a 7:59 pace when they're going easy. So a very narrow window of speeds. And then people say, "Oh, I haven't got any speed." Well, because you're never actually going away from that sort of very narrow band where you're comfortable with. So yeah, I mean, this I can go on and on for the. I find it very easy to give advice, not so easy to take it. So,
I'm the same way.
If I listen to all their videos, I might be a better runner. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I don't know if how often do you have a rest day, for instance? Do you have many rest days?
In the last 3 weeks, I've had most of my days have been rest days. But
okay, yeah. Well, if you're training properly.
Yeah, when I'm training properly, I don't take them. In all truth, I'm sort of embarrassed, but I run 7 days a week. And
yeah, I mean, I was like that, and occasionally I get so tired that you almost have to have a day off, because I'm not one of these people that run every day type streaks. I mean, I have done it a bit subconsciously, but ultimately, if you want to be a good runner, I don't think that's necessarily, running every day isn't really necessarily the answer, because you might be going out and literally running a mile or so, on dead legs, and well, that was a bit of a waste of time, wasn't it, just to put something in the book. So, but also when you've got marathon training, especially, you kind of, as I talk about my own advice again, you have this sort of mileage idea in your head, and if you only run 6 days a week, that means you've got to run a lot more on the days that you are running, because you've had a day off. So I was thinking, if I could have an easy day running, I don't know, a 10K or something, well, that's 10K I don't need to run on the other 6 days, isn't it? So but then you get in what I said earlier about getting in sort of vicious cycle of always training at quite a narrow band of speeds. And I think partly why I got injured, I think I got to the point where I was just sort of, the fatigue was building up, and I felt like, you don't really realize it, do you? Because you almost forget how it is when you feel like good. And it's only when you have a bit of time off and you go for a run thinking, oh, well, it's actually quite nice here, because although I'm not very fit, but you feel like you got a bit of bounce in your legs, and you're not like feeling like every run's a struggle. And you just, some days you almost thought, I don't really want to go today, I'm just not really enjoying it. But when you go out and it's sort of a nice day, and you're not too bothered about the speed, but you can feel like you could go faster if you wanted to. When the days when you go out, you're thinking, even though I'm going easy, I can't go any faster. That's probably a warning that you are a bit tired.
I love
to back off a bit, but
I absolutely love those days when everything just clicks, and you didn't even expect it to happen. It's just But Tim, it's amazing, because just even in the answer to the last question that I was going to ask you today, you can see that the wheels turning. You can, the analysis, that your personality comes through in real time as we sit here and talk, to each other for the first time and kind of met each other. I just want to say, you are everything that I hope you would be. You're just a wonderful person, brilliant, and it just makes me a bigger fan of your channel. And I want to thank you for being here with me tonight. But before we go, I want to make sure that you share all of your social media outlets with everybody who's watching, because I want everybody who's watched this to get over, subscribe to Tim's channel, find him on every platform that he is about to share with you. So please.
I'm quite big. I mean, obviously YouTube. If you just if you put in Tim, I mean, I'm sure you put the links in the notes. Often people misspell me, so it's one S, one E. So I'm not Grose as in 144. And I'm not Grose as in terrible. So it's sometimes a bit of an embarrassing name, because people use your name and it's sort of a bad way. So one S, one E. I'm quite into Strava, so I log all my training on Strava, the good, bad, and the ugly. And I kind of take it now to using my title as a description. So I might write about 5 lines in my title about this, that, and the other, because it's sort of easier than to put like a note in, or
Yeah.
You know, I'll post a lot of pictures of odd things on the way. So sometimes you kind of think, why is Tim? I'm quite into old railways, not really for the trains. I just like running on our railways, and sometimes you might see random pictures of like trains. You think, oh, he's a bit of a train spotter, but no, I kind of prefer it when the trains have gone. But you know, the memories of what would have been. But you think, well, if the trains are there, then I couldn't have run on that line because the track would be in the way, wouldn't it? So yeah, so
Cool.
that
So
sort of thing.
Strava's the big one for you besides YouTube?
Sorry.
I was just saying Strava is the big place where you post.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting when you look at your subscribers. I've got most subscribers on YouTube, but obviously I'm posting on. I think Strava is kind of it's a bit more. Some people, it's a bit like Facebook for runners, isn't it? Do you use Strava much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've
Last,
just
like, year and a half or so.
recently found you. Yeah. So I kind of quite like it because the problem with the modern age is that you feel like you know somebody, you realize you never met them. You know, even not, you haven't even talked to them on virtually. You just literally only ever converse with them in messages on Facebook or on YouTube comments, and you feel like you know people, but then you realize you don't know them. So sometimes I get like requests to join my Facebook page. So not like I just sort of like being awkward, but I think there's no point being a Facebook friend with somebody that I just don't know at all. And if I've met them, or you know, somebody regularly comments on my stuff, then yeah, I'm happy to add you as a friend. But you know, do you really want to know about what my cat's been up to and stuff like that? You know, because that's pretty much what you'll get if you join me as a Facebook friend. You know, so you're probably going to, you don't get much insight. We get my wife, who is she's a bit cynical about, you know, my running stuff. He says, I can't believe you got all those people subscribed to you. Oh, who are these people? Are they mad? I can't believe you've done a video on talking about 3 runners training and you've had like 1,000 people watch it. I think, well, who are these people? Have they got nothing better to do all day or something?
Just runners like me.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
My wife's a bit of a local politician, so she's standing for the election. So yeah. So yeah, we're kind of known in different ways. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, again, sir, first of all, let me say I will share all of your social media links in the show notes below so people can get to you a little bit more easily. But again, let me thank you, Tim. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed sort of the meandering nature of everything we spoke about, because coming from you, it's always entertaining. So thank you.
Yeah, I always like to talk about running, and I can probably talk about it till another few hours. But you've got to stop somewhere, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm more than happy for this friendship to go on and on, because I love everything about the way you speak about running. So I
always find it inspiring to see people of my rough age who are. I'd have to admit, sort of, you know, biting my tongue a bit. You're actually running better than me at the moment, so I need to aspire to get back to your level. Then I'll be pleased, you know.
We need to get some friendly competition going. That could be fun.
Yeah. It's when you're disappointed with the sub-3. It's when you can't do the sub-3, then I'm disappointed. You know?
I'm with you. I know you'll be back though. Once you get past the current injury situation. I know you're going to be killing it out there. So thank you.
Well, I think sometimes you just can't run continuously forever, and sometimes I do look back, and sometimes periods of downtimes have been best in disguises, because you can actually, it re-motivates you, and you think about all the things you did wrong, and you try and avoid them going forwards. Not that I often do, but you know, at least that's why they sort of cogitate all these things in my head, because I'm forever thinking, well, what can I have done better to myself? So then I see people making similar mistakes, and then I can sort of maybe point it out, you know, whether they listen or not is up to them. But
I'm with you 100%. Yeah, I often try to analyze, you know, especially when things go wrong like they did in my last couple of marathons. You know, I try to pick it apart and learn what I can, where the mistakes were made, and it's usually from me pushing too hard with speed and not enough in the aerobic realm. But yeah, this is not the time or place for
I think everyone, there's no one answer. Everyone needs to work out what works best for them, and even then it can be difficult. But you know, when you see somebody else's training, don't necessarily assume that's going to work for you, because people respond in different ways. So you know, yeah, just because you do something or I do something, don't necessarily just blindly copy us, because you know, it's a bit embarrassing on YouTube, because I got injured, you didn't do the time you wanted to, and yet we sort of kind of portray ourselves as sort of knowing what we're on about, and sometimes we don't, do we? And in a way that kind of makes it more realistic, because things don't often go to plan, and you perhaps enjoy them more when they do, because of all the failings along the way. If every race was great, then well, great, but and when you've been running 40 years, not every race is great, and you have far more races that you weren't happy with than you were happy with, but
yeah,
it makes the ones that do go well that much better.
For 10 years, so there's still failures along the way. So I think that's kind of, for me, that's part of the appeal of watching other runners, whether it be through YouTube or if anybody I knew in person, is just kind of watching the experiment and analyzing it for yourself and saying, well, okay, they're human. They didn't get it perfect every time, but this is still a learning experience. And that's what sort of the big thing for me over the last 12 months, kind of coming out of my shell, thanks to YouTube, has really been learning to overcome failure. Like it's okay not to nail it every time, and still share it and put it out there in a very open way, and just say, I didn't make it this time, but here's the lessons that can be learned from that. And
I think as long as I mentioned no names, but there are people like, it almost seem to disappear when things aren't going well, and you think, well, that guy was doing really well, and all of a sudden, where is he? He's always injured, and then that the social media presence has kind of dropped, and that's kind of when you, as you say, you need to be realistic to yourself, don't you think? Well, if you are on this sort of YouTube journey, then you need to sort of share the times when things haven't gone quite as well as you'd hoped for, and what can you learn from that, and what can you also perhaps share that other people might make the same mistakes as you made. I mean, we're still going to make far more mistakes on the way, and but even though I've been running 40 years, I was never as good as I wanted to be, and I'll never be as good at, even now, I'm never as good at, because every time you run, you could also run a second quicker, couldn't you? So I think, well, have my time again. Well, if I took that corner a bit better, I could have been a second quicker or something, or so it's even like silly things, you could think of, or if I like, record the course better, or if I'd not going to bed late the night before, or that's one of my worst things, is I don't go to bed very early, because I'm always sort of doing bits and bobs, and especially during lockdown, I'm a bit of a night owl, so that's why it's kind of late for me, and not so late for you, but I could be happy here for hours yet.
But that's awesome. I love hearing you. The same thoughts run through your head that as run through mine. Even
well, I think when you get to our age, you have to be a bit sort of you have to be able to laugh at yourself, don't you? Because
exactly.
Your 20s have gone, and then you battle through. Sometimes you look at it and think, well, I'm quite glad I don't have to go through that again, and I'm sort of happily married now, and times when you're on your own and stuff, and you're never quite sure whether you can sort of afford a new pair of shoes. I'm not saying I'm rich, but if I want a pair of shoes, then by and large, the wife may sort of make a few comments, but I've got a couple of eBay sales of old shoes, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to recoup a bit of money so I could reinvest it in some other shoes. I'm not even sure what new shoes I want at the moment. It's kind of an odd thing. I've had a look at a few of them. I don't think I'm really that enticed by that one, which is kind of rare for me. And I kind of realized that I shouldn't just buy shoes because I think I might make a YouTube video. I should buy a shoe of shoes because I think I'm actually going to use them. So I've got a pair of Romeros that I'm using at them. I didn't like it that much at the start, but I've done 180 miles in them now. So I'm thinking, well, actually, they've kind of grown on me. And
I was going to say, they must have,
yeah. But they're a bit of a slow shoe. But at the moment, that's kind of helpful because it doesn't encourage me to go sort of any faster than I should be anyway.
Easy anyway. I've been avoiding my endorphin speeds just so that I don't go too fast as I try to move.
Yeah, that used to be my go-to shoe, but I think when I'm looking for a bit more sort of, I've tried the Invincibles, but I think when I've got a bit of an injury, I almost found it a bit too soft. I felt I was having to do a bit too much work to actually you know, they're almost sinking too much. With the Vomeros, they're a bit firmer.
Okay.
So perhaps I don't really need stability shoes, but I just feel that they're not sort of like these really soft foams now that you feel like you're sinking as much as you're going forward. So I think at the moment there's quite a good shoe, and I think that's, maybe I should do a video on that. But it's one of those videos you're kind of thinking, oh, it's quite hard to articulate, isn't it? You can talk about it in a few sentences, but can you really make a video out of that? Probably not, you know. So I was thinking that I should do a video on, like, an update on shoes I have been wearing. I like the Speeds, I like the Vomeros and the Feel. I got a pair of Skechers recently, which I did a bit of walking in them. Then I did a little run in them. Well, these are quite nice. They're nice and light, but I haven't really done enough running in them yet to sort of give it a proper opinion. But yeah.
Which model of Sketcher?
Oh, it's the Razor. Is it Razor XS or something? It's quite a light one. I should know, shouldn't I? But yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And I've bought a pair of the Puma DV8 Nitro Elites. It was a bit embarrassing going out in a racing shoe when you're plodding along at 9-minute miles, worried about your hamstring pulling every minute. So yeah. I'll have to give them on a proper go as well. But yeah.
Wow, very cool.
What shoes do you like?
Oh boy, you know, it's funny. It's not very varied at the moment. My favorite shoe that I've ever run in is the Saucony Endorphin Pro.
Okay.
With that being,
is that what you did the marathon
in the Nikes? I've never run in the Vaporflies.
Okay, yeah.
And my favorite sort of up-tempo day shoe is the Endorphin Speed. I've as far as other quick shoes in the last couple of years that I've really liked, the Skechers Razor 3 was a favorite. I love that shoe for shorter, faster stuff.
Okay.
Boy,
did you have like a sort of an easy day shoe that you use?
Easy day shoe. This is boring. This is boring, but it's true. The Hoka Clifton
okay.
That shoe just works for me when I'm going slow.
I know I tried a few Hokas, but I don't know if it's like the drop of them or the shape of them. But I got I never tried a Clifton, but I tried the Carbon X, the Rincon, and the Rocket X.
Love the Rincon.
I think I must have run about 50 miles of them in total, so it was a bit of a waste of money. And wow, they're sitting on the shelf back there somewhere. Yeah.
Love the Rincon, I think but you can't go. They die fast. You can't get miles out of them.
Yeah. I think because traditionally, because I have quite narrow feet or long feet, I've always sort of worn sort of Nike, Adidas, or New Balance. They've been, depending on which model. So back in the day, I would literally, I think my record was 13 pairs of the same shoe. So back then, you didn't have like the internet to go and like explore every single shoe on the market, did you? You'd go to a shoe shop and then you would try on what they had there, and you'd come out with something which is like often the least worst. Literally, I've had that sometimes. I've gone into a shop and then come out with something that, oh, why did I buy that? But that was like the least worst shoe there. But I needed a new shoe, so that out it came. And sometimes you kind of win like that, sometimes you don't. But I think it's great now for shoes because running is becoming quite popular again, isn't it? And as a result, there's quite a lot of companies that are making shoes, and with the new technologies, there's obviously quite a lot of money to be made, and our fellow YouTubers are helping to sort of spread the word, as it were. So you find out about the shoes. I mean, I've never probably tried the Pro or the Speed because I've never really had a Saucony shoe before, or the Skechers. So they're kind of brands that, I don't know about them, I won't try them. So I think the internet and the YouTube has been really helpful. That then you do feel like I'll give these ones a go, and sometimes they don't work out and sometimes they do, and you think, well, you don't really know until you try it, and then it's a bit of a problem because sometimes that can be an expensive mistake. Yeah,
exactly.
But equally, I think it's important to have at least a quiver of shoes, not wear the same one for everything. But
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think the way even shoes with very similar drops can work your foot in a very different way. So I'm a big fan of switching up a lot.
Yeah.
But cool, Tim. Let me thank you again for being here tonight. And It's been an absolute pleasure.
I mean, the time's flown, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I just looked down.
People are never going to watch the whole of this one. You'll have to edit it down a bit. Yeah.
It was an absolute pleasure. The time would not have flown like this if it wasn't just like a fun conversation. So thank you.
Yeah. No, it's been the same. Yeah, I can't believe how late it is actually.
Yeah. Time's flying. But
so we could probably talk for another couple of hours with this. Well, we may have to do a part 2 when we've got some other stuff to relate.
Oh, I'd love to have you on again. It would be an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Cheers.